Joel H. Brewster, and I'm no stranger to horror. And this is a podcast where I discuss the big and the small of the genre with the hopes of taking you from being a casual horror fan to a spooky film fanatic. Today with me is Anelle Dehghani from Raven Banner. Raven Banner has worked on such films as Tigers Are Not Afraid, Psycho Goreman, The Sadness, The Evil in Us, Turbo Kid, Alone with You, Climax, Autopsy of Jane Doe, Baskin, and the list goes on and on. Anelle, how are you doing today?
Hi. Yeah, I'm doing great. Not happy to be here. Yeah, a little bit about myself. I'll just jump right in. I do a little bit of everything at Raven Banner. So I help with acquiring films, putting them out domestically, as well as marketing it internationally for our world sales distribution. So yeah, a little bit of everything. So I'm a wealth of knowledge when it comes to our Raven Banner titles.
Yeah. It's interesting too because like you saying that you do a little bit of everything kind of describes what the company does too. Because Raven Banner, just like those movies I listed off, they're connected like from sales and some of them from being the producers of it. But like it when I was looking through like the whole catalog of all the things from Raven Banner, I was just blown away by the movies that were connected.
Yeah, we ultimately we started off as a company with three guys that just really liked horror films, and they had made their own movie, had given it to a sales agent, and that sales agent um, did what they could with it, but they weren't getting the information that they necessarily wanted, and they figured, you know
Mhm.
what? Why don't we do it? We know the same people. We want to be the distributor for the filmmakers, and through that, I think that has given us just a unique place in the market where we can grow with filmmakers, which is what we really like to do, and still make our own movies and just acquire some really cool content.
Oh, absolutely. And what I was kind of blown away from, and this is why this is going to kind of tie into like this month's episode. I feel that Raven Banner does like a love letter for genre films because there's so much stuff that a lot of people wouldn't get to see, and thanks to Raven Banner gets to see as well as produces a lot of things that I ideas that I'm like I don't really see the bravery of that coming from other companies. So I just as a, like a genre fan, I just love that I get to see all these different movies come from one company.
Yeah, that was always our goal, was to find those unique movies that might not get a voice anywhere else and put it out there. The Sadness is a great example of that, right? Where it was a film that technically was already released, and no one wanted to pick it up. And we were like, you know what? We see something here. We think this is a lot of fun. Let's roll with it.
I I'm still blown away because we met at the Blood in the Snow film festival and the development lab, and I remember talking to you about the Sadness. I'm such a huge fan of the movie, as I'm sure you got from how much I talked about. I brought it up with you. I was kind of blown away that like no one wanted to pick it up because like it's such a unique story. It's got a love story in there. It's the dual protagonist. I just think everything about that was a really unique movie. I was surprised to hear that no one picked it up, and I'm so glad you guys did.
Yeah, I think what it is that it's a movie that is just so violent. And during the height of the pandemic, it's a movie that takes place with Chinese language, directed by a Canadian filmmaker. There's a lot of things that don't seem like it should work on paper, but then when you see it, it's amazing, right?
Yeah.
And it just it I have a pure love for that movie too. I just think it did everything right. And now from that movie, we've seen so many other films that are kind of pushing the boundaries as well, which is great. I love seeing that kind of windfall from our films.
Yeah, I think that the interesting thing about that too, like how I think I brought this up with you, was that it pushed the boundaries, but it has a way of doing it that it was still like very artistically beautiful in a lot of sense. And you pointed out to me the crying of the infected, an artistic detail that I didn't really catch until you brought that up.
Yeah, it took me so long to notice that as well. I feel like if you it's a movie you have to watch multiple times because you will constantly see something new and different and get different notes from it. The first time I watched it, I saw it as a action horror film with a very deep love story there,
Hmm.
which I know so many other people didn't see.
Yeah, and the interesting about the love story too that I really liked was the it starts off one way. It's not he's not the perfect boyfriend, and then just the kind of grounded element of that to kind of be better, and then the incidents that happen, and then the split of the stories I thought
Yeah.
was really interesting too, and I didn't expect that at all.
Yeah, just the way that he was able to give us different walks of life or segments of what this virus gives us, and just was able to intersect it all together was just so brilliant, I think. And I can't wait to see what he does next, truly.
Yeah, especially for it was a directorial debut
Yeah.
as well, right?
Yeah,
So
it was. His short is featured in the Blu-ray, which was just like a small little thing. But yeah, this is his directorial debut, and I he's got so many other things that are he's just gonna have a really great career for sure.
yeah, yeah. Another movie that I thought that caught me off guard, that made me like laugh out loud was Psycho Goreman. I thought that was just such an audible. That's another. I was gonna actually. That's a note I have written down about Raven Banner's films, whether they're required to produce or whatever. They have a very audible response from me. I feel like they're in one way like I'll either be laughing out loud because it's just like this beautiful like campy nature to it, or it's just got like this really visceral like I can't believe it kind of went there, like action violence to it. But either way, I really get an audible response from like anything Raven Banner. I've always liked that aspect.
Yeah, I think one of the unique things that we have as well is that we want to develop movies, right? As you had mentioned, we have a production arm as well as our distribution arm. And with Psycho Gorman, that was one of the ones that we were attached to at script level, and we just did whatever we could to add to it ultimately. And yeah, that one was a surprise as well because you think of a kids horror film and you don't know how that's going to end up, but we've done really well in that genre or subgenre, if you will, with Turbo Kid as well.
Right. Before we like hop to Sherwood, one thing I think that Psycho Gorman absolutely nailed, and I don't think is talked about nearly enough across the genre, is maybe the best child protagonist I've ever seen in anything of my life. The Mimi, the character, actually killed me throughout that whole movie. I have a daughter that's 3 years old. Now she's me and my wife were laughing. I think she was like two when it or one or two when we first saw it, and we were laughing like that's what Ava's gonna be like because we were like just just the sense of just independence right away killed me. I thought it was such a funny story to follow her around.
Yeah, she's so over the top, and
Mhm.
it just she does it so well. It was wonderful to see, and it's not over the top in the way that it could be annoying or anything like that. It's perfect in the sense that you get enough hunky boys in there and just like child nostalgia as well, I think is what really got me on that movie.
Yeah, it reminded me of like Power Rangers. It was
Yeah.
very much like it was like a horror aspect of like Power Rangers, and I was like, this is like everything I want. Like this is, I watched it a couple of times, and I was like, this is just killed me for that. It just made me laugh out loud. But yeah, and the practical effects were just
Yeah.
like each one of the aliens was so well done too.
Yeah, and you'll consistently see that with his movies. He's always going to do everything practically, and that's brilliant, right? That's his unique take on what he does. That's his brand, and I can't wait to see what he does next.
I based on like these different movies here, what is there anything that because now you've got Fight Machine coming out, which is a bare knuckle boxing movie that kind of seems a little different. Is there a set thing on like Raven Banner where there's like a movie where it's like this is just not a Raven Banner thing? Because it feels like you guys are very diversely have of a voice that I can visually see through your different projects. But is there anything that you guys have seen and be like, oh, that's not really Raven Banner, even though it's adjacent to the genre?
I think we steer away from dramas as much as humanly possible. Not that there's no space for dramas in the horror world or anything like that, but those are just a little bit harder for us to sell if they don't have a big name on it, right?
Mhm.
So, and that's true for that genre in general, like thrillers, anything that's a little slower. Those take so much more time, and you need a name to draw those people in. And because we are a boutique company, we like to keep things small when we can.
Mhm.
Obviously, if we could get Elliot Page on a film, we want Elliot Page, right? But
Yeah.
if we can't, then what do we do then, right? With that, our answer is to add action to it, to add creatures into it. So to answer your question, yeah, it's really dramas that we don't say no to necessarily, but there has to be we're more picky when it comes to those kind of
Yeah.
movies.
It's funny too to just watch how another thing. Yeah, sorry. It's funny too to just watch when I see like Raven Banner things and I think it's like a very Canadian company, and then just the difference of a lot of other Canadian films, or even what people think Canadian films are, I think that's one thing that really drew me to Raven Banner, was like how different I feel like a lot of these films are from like all over the world, but there's a lot of Canadian content in there as well, and just how different they are. It fascinates me, and I really love to see that too.
Yeah, I think every province has their own landscape, and there's different stories you can tell everywhere, right? And that just shows how multicultural we are and all of that as well. But truly, we have a distinct voice in terms of the films that we have, that we've represented, that have been made in Saskatchewan or Alberta, with Supergrid and Trench 11, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then we have, there's a distinct feel that you get from the movies that we make in Northern Ontario versus Hamilton. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, I think that also gives us just a really great, unique way of making our movies as well, or and acquiring them. Like, we always know that the Collingwood Films team is going to give us something wacky
Mm-hmm.
every time. With Cult Hero, that this one was just completely out of the box. We were not expecting that from them, and we do also tend to steer away from comedies, but this one just had the right amount of action and comedy, and we took that one on. So yeah.
Yeah, here's a question actually. On that, what film, whether it's comedy or sorry, whether it has that aspect to it of like the more comedic or more camp or more actual like action, what film has gotten the best audible response at festivals, or has it like kind of like the Raven Banner goes to festival and they're really the same sort of audible response? Is there anyone you remember?
Oh, the best response we've gotten is The Sadness, hands
Mm,
down.
yeah.
Both from festivals and from festival viewers. From there, I think Climax obviously is one that got a lot of love festival wise. Same thing with Autopsy of Jane Doe. But yeah, definitely The Sadness. I think that was the surprise for all of us.
Yeah. Oh, this is what I was going to ask you too. Because I don't think too many people saw this. There was a teaser that played at the Blood and the Snow Festival, like a Raven Banner teaser trailer
Oh,
that was cut together.
yep.
Yeah, is that online somewhere? Because I've been trying to like find it, and I just thought that was one of the coolest things of all time.
I re-edit it every time we add a new movie or we go to a new
Oh,
market, but it does
right.
live somewhere online. I believe it's actually on the Blood and the Snow website, at least that version of it.
Okay.
There's another version from many moons ago, 2015, where you would see the cuts of like Deathgasm, Dead Shack,
Right.
Valken. So yeah, it's an ever evolving one, but it does live somewhere.
Yeah, I will definitely put that in the show notes. The one from Blood and Snow, because that was like just I can't remember what it was before, but I saw it before something, and I was like, holy shit! It was such a cool. It was so like well done and so well to cut together. But it like yeah, really
Yeah.
blew you away right there.
It played because we're a sponsor at Blood in the Snow. It played before every
Right.
single screening, so you probably saw it quite a few times.
Yeah, I did. I saw but like the first time I saw it, I was like, holy god! Like it just like really caught me off guard. And I just like I don't know why I was like coming, because I saw their like teasers and everything like that, but just like the way it was done, it was really really well done. I'll put that in the show notes. Yeah, I just absolutely love that.
Yeah, we like every time we cut teasers, we because our films are so over the top, wacky, whatever they
Mhm.
might be in that season, we have a lot of playroom when it comes to cutting teasers. And the first thing we do is find a really good song and just cut to the song. Yeah.
Yeah, because that was like perfectly cut to that.
Yeah, I think we know what our audience wants at this point. And we also, as movie lovers, we equally hate when people reveal too much in the trailer. So we try to find that really wonderful fine line where we can tease you the story, show it to you, but then when you go and watch the movie, you're not expecting everything, and it surprises you still, which is I think a really fine line that people have to find, and it's just not easy. But yeah, we do it well. We have a really great trailer editor.
Yeah, you also put like you can put the monster in the trailer, and it's still because I feel like that a lot of I'm probably gonna get killed for saying this word out like saying this word out loud, but elevated horror quote unquote movies, they don't put like a lot of their monster in the trailers, and it'll sometimes be like more ambiguous than you see the movie, and then it can fall flat sometimes because they built it up that, oh, this is the craziest thing ever, and then the reveal is just the thing in the trailer. just like the monster.
Yep.
I feel like with Raven Banner, it's like you can put the monster in the trailer and I can still watch and be like, oh yeah, there's going to be more surprises than just this reveal of the monster.
Yeah, I think on that side too, we don't like to have a movie with the monster in just like the very end of the film, which is something that I know a lot of times you can't get around. Sometimes you just don't have the budget for that, but we try to make sure that we have a lot to work with. So yeah, I completely hear that. That's one of the big things about trailers that bother me too.
Yeah. Another question here, because you've traveled with Raven Banner in different festivals. Where's the furthest you've been, or the craziest festival you've Raven Banner or you with Raven Banner gone?
My favorite one to attend outside of local Toronto ones would be Fantasia, which I know is still our backyard. It's Montreal, but it's just such a nice vibe. It's not as busy as Fantastic Fest or any of those ones, but it still has the exact same vibe. You almost see the exact same movies there lined up, which is kind of great.
Yeah.
I always love going to Berlin, but who doesn't love going to Berlin? It's just a fun place to be. So yeah, I would say it would be a toss up between Fantasia and Berlin for sure.
Yeah, that's really cool. You get to like see those different. Sorry, I should probably ask, or just for the audience in this sense, how did you get started with Raven Banner?
Oh yeah. So a few years after their inception, it was just the three guys and they needed to hire people. I was a student at the Toronto Film School and I was in Michael Pash's distribution and marketing class and he asked me sight unseen if I wanted an internship. Um, I think that very much has to do with the fact that I was wearing a Iron Maiden T-shirt on the very first day, and we
Nice.
immediately connected on metal music, and yeah, I started interning there, and I never left, um, and I've just been growing, and that's something I really love about the company is that I've been able to touch so many different aspects of the industry and just keep learning and growing, just like they are.
Yeah, what's been one of the most like? What's one thing you went into it like when you started like with Raven Banner? Like, oh, okay, I kind of understood this from the film industry because of film school. But what's one thing that's shocked you about like the film industry in terms of like films that I guess are getting picked up and films that are getting interest?
That's an interesting one. I think one of the things that all schools, all film programs do a disservice on is they don't put enough emphasis on distribution. So when you go into the industry, into that side of things, like you don't know a lot. Even if you have the class, if you did it for like 2 semesters, whatever, you learn more you learn more after the fact when you're in that world than you ever could in class. And when it comes to just what buyers are picking up and stuff like that, I'm like always baffled by what explodes online or gets a lot of tension or and then not tension, that was not the right word, but
Traction.
thank
Yeah.
you, traction. But oftentimes it's when the genres that are of interest all of a sudden switch. So there was a
Mhm.
time where body comedy was doing really well and creature features were doing really, really well. And then all of a sudden that stopped. Someone might have a lineup of creature features being like, this is what everyone's wanted for the past 2 or 3 markets. And then they turn around and they go, oh no, now we want isolated horror films. And
Mm.
isolated horror films could have been doing terribly for 2 or 3 years. That always surprises me. And I think we kind of saw that with Skinamarink.
Hmm.
Just a low budget, kind of took off like Blair Witch, kind of a movie that is unexpected, unassuming. Those are the ones always that surprise me.
Yeah, it's really weird and really hard to get. Like as a horror fan too, like it's just really hard to predict and just see the divisive nature of like how some movies do online. Like Skin Rank's a great example of how that is a very love it or hate it I've seen online, but either way, it did very very well for itself.
Yeah, love it or hate it, you
And
still watched it. You still paid to see it.
absolutely. Yeah, that's what like, and then and it started a conversation, right? Like it started,
Exactly.
especially from an Edmonton film. I thought that was a interesting in that aspect. I didn't expect kind of an analogy that I thought of. This is going to be very hyperbolic in the sense of, but I think this kind of ties to it for what you're saying for distribution. It feels that general audiences as well as filmmakers doesn't really understand how their films gets to them in the same way that we don't understand how our food gets to us. I feel that like, and that's really gray area that people don't get. Budgets was another one too that kind of blew me away from what you were telling me. It's like it's hard to predict what budgets are for film, but also, yeah, I thought that was really interesting too.
Yeah, I have been explaining to my family for the past 10 years what I do, and to this day, they have no idea what I do. They just simply ask me if I've met Will Smith yet. That's it. They've given up on me. um, and you know what? I respect that. It's a complicated job, especially when you work for a company that does do a little bit of everything. How do you explain that? Oh, we're a producer. We also sell the film. But selling a film globally is different than selling it domestically.
Hmm.
And how do you market for that? Oh, it's all different. Yeah, it's a hard one to explain, and it's forever changing. Just the like you said, what a budget could be for a movie, especially with inflation and everything as well. We have just the regular things with money that we have to deal with, like inflation, but then we also have, okay, but how much can you actually make? And that's what your
Hmm.
budget has to be. Whether or not your movie is actually that budget is completely different, right? So yeah, that's another one that's just always been really hard. And it's a conversation that you have to just mentally prepare for, I find.
Hmm.
Because yeah, half the time a horror film, when you write it and you look at it, if you put all your imagination into it, it's about $3 to $5 million. But the sweet spot for a horror film, for an indie horror film at least, is about 1.5. So just being able to rein in all the things you want to be able to do and still tell a really good story.
Yeah, and with that budget, has that budget gone down because of inflation, or has it gone down just because, like, in a sense, as the industry as a whole, where they've thought like, oh, this $5 million movie will do pretty well, and that's like, and then all of a sudden that $5 million movie doesn't do well. Is that what's happened, or is it just gone down because of just like inflation, or that's just always been the sweet spot?
It's a mix. There was once a time way before I was in this industry where people would go to Cannes and Berlin with suitcases filled with cash, and
Hmm.
that's how deals were closed. You'd get a suitcase. Like, that's what I'm told. And I think that's somewhat believable. Our industry's crazy enough for that. But
Yeah.
um, I think it's a little bit of a mix where because of torrenting and the way the economy is and all of that, that has just changed how much someone can make off of a movie. And at the end of the day, making a movie is an investment, right? You need to see a
Hmm.
return. And everyone has an opinion on why budgets are going down and people are trying to make a really good movie for less. And sometimes it's simply because you can, right? Thrillers, again, for example, you don't need a really if you don't need a star cast, then you could do it for pretty cheap, depending on the type of horror film you have, if it's an isolated one or whatever. But I blame torrenting for sure. I think that and streaming in general, right? Because
Hmm.
we're looking at we when people were surprised about the amount of money that Apple had put down for Coda
Yeah.
to get that for World. And I know that's not a horror film, but that just shows kind of how much money people were expecting, right? Because that was a surprise. And that on reflection, it is a lot of money, but a lot of people think that most movies make 10 times that, right? It's just the being disillusioned to it, I guess.
I think it goes down back to what I was saying about the movies like getting to like kind of like people don't know where their movies come from and such like that, because yeah, I think that I think the general misconception is people don't understand how much movies like make, or what movies didn't make as much, because I'm not gonna throw them on the bus. There was movies that I believe we talked at Blood in the Snow Festival that I was like, oh yeah, that was like such like a good movie, and then whether it or whoever was connected to it, you're like, oh yeah, I just know that Intel, or people have told me like while I was there, other people told me too. Intel were like, yeah, that movie didn't do as well, and I'm always shocked by when I look up online where I'm like a movie that I'm in, or even like now big budget movies aren't even doing well, and I'm like kind of shocked with it. Like
Yeah,
it's just kind of, I guess, scary for the industry.
that is just a part of the industry. Like there are movies that are made, let's again go with 5 million here, and they only make 100,000 in the box office. And
Hmm.
ultimately you have to think about what the barometer of success is. Does it have long-term success, or is it a film that is going to be a burner, right? Or are you going to get the, again, Skinamarink, where it made, what is it now, 2 million? globally.
2 million. I think it made like 800 and something thousand over a weekend, which is insane.
Yeah.
Or like, yeah, that was insane off a
And
$15,000 budget.
but when you think about it, they had nothing to lose because their budget was so small. And then there are
Hmm.
bigger budget horror films where it relies on getting some festival buzz, and then it doesn't get any buzz on that end at all. And then when it hits the theaters or VOD, it just kind of falls flat because no one's heard of it. And
Hmm.
there's not enough marketing or just word of mouth that kind of can build that up. And again, I'm going back to Skinamarink. That is what they had. They had just so much word of mouth going on that, and so much buzz through TikTok and everything like that, that you need that now. And I think people are really surprised. They think almost every movie is at least every big budget studio film is assumed to be a success, but a lot of the times it really isn't. Um, I'm generalizing. I shouldn't say a lot of the times, but sometimes it
Yeah.
can tank.
Well, I think that lately too, I've been not just, I don't want to say disillusioned, but I've been like very surprised because I've heard just very, like, I'm not even sure if they're outlandish things on like what movies are getting picked up or what was not able to get picked up. Because I heard, and I hope this is maybe a rumor, I hope I'm not going to get torn apart from this like online, but I heard that like Aaron Sorkin and Meryl Streep were trying to pitch a TV series and they couldn't get that picked up. And I was like, I don't know what's going on in the world if that can't get picked up. But it's like, that's like, how?
Yeah.
How? So it just, it kind of feels like, or you know what I mean? Or like The Rock puts out a superhero movie and it doesn't do well. Like, I just feel like things are off in the sense of like what's getting picked up and what's getting like, and what's turning out to be popular.
Yeah, what's working and what's not working. It's one of those things that it's always a gamble. And I would say that you also have to know when a genre is being oversaturated, right?
Mhm.
It's up to, I don't know how to word this properly. I would say like it ultimately depends on oversaturation and then also just availability, right?
Mhm.
One of the things we've been asking for another True Detective season, right? When is that coming out? That's availability. By the time it does come out, is there going to be enough interest or buzz behind it, right? When it comes to zombie movies, people have been saying that it's oversaturated and it's dead. But then look at Last of Us,
Mhm.
right? And I think the same thing goes with superhero movies. It's every like we do hear people saying that it's oversaturated, but is it? Is it, or is the audience still there regardless of the saturation? And that's something that you have to you have to figure out whether or not you have the right timing for it.
On that exact note, yeah, it's been like that's been fascinating. Remakes is another one that everyone's like, oh, we're sick of remakes, we're sick of reboots, we're sick of like these sequels, and then Top Gun comes out. I mean, like I understand, but like still, that was kind of like blew me away. On like I'm like how because how heavy everyone's been saying we're sick of this, we're sick of this, and then like that and like Avatar just Avatar 2 came out, which I could get, but I'm like, oh, okay, well, they still, it doesn't really feel like, or even like Scream. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just like these things people say they're sick of. But yeah, I feel like the superhero movies is, I'm kind of bored. Like, I get that that's kind of dying, but yeah, I did. I think that's what really draws me to Raven. Those companies that I never really know what I'm going to get when I hear that like Raven is dropping a trailer, but at the same time,
Yeah.
I do, if that makes sense. Like I understand the voice of it all, but I'm still very surprised. Like Mad Heidi's trailer is so good. I really want to see that.
That was the reaction I had when I first saw that trailer. The filmmakers were, I can't remember exactly how that came about, but the filmmakers were working on their own release and they asked if we would like to get on board, and we said yes. And we didn't get the feature. Or at least I didn't get the feature. What was given to me was a trailer, and I saw it, and I just called called my bosses, and I'm like, sight unseen, I want this. This is so good. This is so insane. It fits our wacky brand so well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks like so much fun. It looks like it's an impossible not to be fun movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how do I best describe? It feels like a drive-in movie. It feels like I'm going to like an old drive-in, and it's like a wacky movie. Like I don't know. I think that looks really really good.
How do you describe what a Swissploitation film is? Well,
Yeah.
there's Lederhosen and cheese.
Was there like I don't know if I like was that like fondue zombies? Was that like something that like
Yeah, that is what they are. Yeah, cheese madness in that movie. And it's yeah, she's fighting. The description that they use is that she's fighting a war against a cheese fueled machinery of hate.
that's such a unique idea. See, the thing is too, one another thing. I'm like I clear my clear love for this cup for your company here, but another thing that I think is like really unique in the age of where AI is going, and there's like a lot of AI that's gonna be able to write things and write scripts.
Mhm.
I don't feel like there's an AI that'll be able to write a Raven Banner movie for the sheer sense of how chaotic a lot of the nature is and how original it is. So I always like that aspect of it. An AI can write a Marvel movie. An AI can write a like I don't want to say Hallmark, but like a TV movie in that sense because those are very like formulaic. But there's just such a interesting aspect to like everything Raven Banner touches that I feel that it's kind of like AI safe in that sense. I like that.
I like that too, and I think that just shows like the different voices that we try to champion. Like
Mhm.
no one would have expected us to pick up a the Finnish Batman back in 2016,
Yeah.
but we did. And then on the other side of things, in that same year, we also had a movie about a dentist who was a screenwriter, and everything that he wrote in his movie was coming to life.
Which movie's that? I was
That,
trying to go through your catalog here.
that's Snowflake.
Writing that down. That sounds insane.
It's an insane action film. It is. It's it does horror comedy really well. Horror comedy action.
Okay, that sounds
Like
hilarious
how
and
can
like really weird.
exactly. Like, how can it not be funny finding out that these two dudes who are just like eating shawarma, realizing that everything wrong that's happening to them is because some dentist wrote it down in a movie.
That's so wild. Okay, definitely gonna check that out.
Yeah.
Another thing that you did mention earlier, and actually kind of want to circle back to this. You were talking about not a lot of dramas are well, no dramas is kind of thing that Raven Manor kind of steer away from. Fight Machine kind of has like a more dramatic aspect than the other films, and I thought that was interesting. Kind of seemed like a Rocky, more grounded, but it seems really bloody. That I love it. I'm really drawn to what's going on there.
Yeah. It is more drama than what we normally take, but of course it's directed by Andrew, one of the owners.
Right.
But it has enough of that action to it and just enough of genre, if you will,
Hmm.
that it still fits our brand. There's enough fighting in it that it still works. It's story led, and that's fantastic, and the acting's phenomenal as well. But it also was really loved by the horror festivals, so we knew that it still fit our brand, right? And we do have films too that actually do cross between Northern Banner, our non horror brand, as well
Hmm.
as Raven Banner. Um, and that one I think could fit under both as well.
Somewhat connected to this, but as far as how you said that some things can be connected through Northern Banner and Raven Banner, is there any possibility that Raven Banner plans to have any of their films connected? Like kind of I don't want to say the term cinematic universe, but like a loose cinematic universe
The
in a sense,
multiverse?
because
um,
a multiverse.
yeah. Um, if you look at some of our movies,
Okay.
or in the future, if you look at some of our movies, yes. But ultimately, like that's never going to be written into the story.
Right.
Will
Right.
you occasionally see maybe a poster or something that ties another horror film, another one of our horror films to another one that we make? It's possible. One connection you'll see with a few of our movies is our office mascot Willa,
Hmm.
Andrew's wonderful dog, is featured in both Spare Parts and The Breach.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's
Like that connection.
those little connections here and there, but and then like will the actors, but that's about it.
Hmm.
That's not something that we intend on doing anytime soon. Maybe if it's maybe in the future, but not right now.
Yeah, I was just one of those things where I'm like, I don't see how that because the films are quite different than each other, even like tonally they may be similar.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't really see how that work. But I'm like, I thought I would just ask because I'm like, I do see that's a commonality between a lot of different things throughout the industry is trying to connect franchises that way. So
You know
just
what? Would it be
wonder.
cool if we did like a Turbo Kid versus Manborg movie? Probably.
Yeah, right. So that's where I'm kind of like, it feels like there is some things that could still connect.
It would have to be
Yeah,
so selective. Yeah, we just have to be so selective about that. But it could be interesting, and even throw in Rendell into that mix as well, right? But yeah, I think that ultimately that would just be chaos trying to figure out.
yeah. I think that'd be it'd be like a very yeah. It would. I would like to see like I think it'd be really funny if there was like a kind of like a Raven. But I'm not sure if you ever saw that YouTube video from a while back where someone did like an animation where they got all the different villains from different franchises to like fight each other. It was like a really weird like yeah, like if they did that with a different Raven Banner villains, I think that'd be like really funny. But that's obviously like a seems like a nightmare to even coordinate,
You know
but
what?
or like such a fever dream.
We kind of have a movie like that, not with our villains, but we have Monster Brawl, which is like the iconic monsters
Mm.
in a boxing ring. So you know what? You never know.
That's because I do want to see the businessman from The Sadness reappear somehow and just tear through everything because that is one of my favorite villains of
Yeah,
all time.
he's I did not think I was gonna come out of that movie being like, man, the businessman. I wanted more. Because we
Yeah,
so much of him already. But yeah, he was phenomenal in that movie. And for someone that has
so good.
done horror or action, at least as far as I know, I don't believe he has. I think he's only done dramas and romance kind of movies. So
Mhm.
just perfect.
I was posting about him on Instagram because I'm such a huge fan. For life of me, his name is escaping me right now. But I was posting about him. He followed me on Instagram. I was like, "This is my greatest celebrity moment." I was like, "Going to show my wife." She's like, "Okay." I'm like, "No, you don't understand. This is a really cool thing."
This man is a genius. He's
Oh,
he's a talent that no one is giving him enough credit for. Yeah.
I thought so. He horrified me just like from start to finish. I thought like, and the look of him, how he just like kept on getting scarier
Yeah.
like per time he appeared. Oh yeah.
Yeah. He plays
Also,
so well.
he did. Also, one of I'm gonna have to credit where credit's due. Maybe of all time, I'm gonna say one of the best Red Band trailers I've ever seen in my life too. That that Red Band trailer for The Sadness is one of the best Red Band trailers that maybe ever existed. That's like I'm trying to struggle to think of other ones I really liked as much as that one, but that was like disturbing. I loved it.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things where we just had so much to work with, and it's like we don't have to allude to anything. We can show everyone everything, and even when it happens in the movie and they know it's about to happen, it's still gonna have like that gut effect that like, oh, every time you see like that kid's arm being snapped and yeah. Um
Yeah.
it's
Or
just
the face being peeled. Like
you know,
it's one of those horror movies where I'm like, oh, that's so gross. I can't look away. I need to know this practical effect was done. I am fascinated by this. I'm like, so gross to look at.
yeah.
I cannot look away.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like it's an action film, I think horror film second, at least that's my opinion. And it's one of those things where it's like you walk out of that movie going, that was terrifying, but it wasn't in a way that you expect from a horror film, where I think a lot of the times you expect it to have jump scares and things like that, where this movie was just the
Mhm.
entire way through, nonstop.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned this to you. What I liked about the sadness as opposed to like the cross, I thought that there was like a limit of where the sadness didn't go in the terms of like sexual violence
Yep.
that I thought made it better than the cross, in my opinion. Because I was like, I thought that like that's it did head that way, but it was more off screen, and I thought that like the limit of where it went there was made it more enjoyable. I personally think as a story, as well as the actual love story that was in there, I thought was just more interesting.
Yeah,
But
I completely agree. I don't think that when it comes to like sexual violence and things like that, I don't think that you necessarily need to show it. Our imaginations will go
mhm,
wherever you want to hint. And even with the physical violence that we saw, they that's something that I think the trailer did really well. We showed the start of it, we never showed the end of it. So your imagination could go wild in terms of what would happen to those characters next from what you saw from the trailer, which I think also lent to people seeing the trailer, going to see the film, and not being disappointed.
yeah, One thing I need to definitely order from your guys' website is I saw that you had the Businessman on a T-shirt, and I was like, I need to
Yeah.
get that. Your merch is underrated, by the way, because there's like a lot of stuff when I was going through there, looking through your guys' website. I'm like, oh, there's a lot of really cool, different merch here from like different movies.
Yeah, constantly people keep checking our website. We are constantly pumping out new merch and trying different things. A lot of the times we make the merch for when we go to fan expos and stuff like that, and then
Hmm.
we put it out. But we've noticed that people do actually want the merch, which is so great. Our VHSs of Turbo Kid and Manborg. Um, I'm blanking on the other movie as well, which is true.
Psycho
Come
Goreman?
True is
Oh, come true, yeah.
yeah. And I think even Climax we might have done as well. They all did really well as VHSs, and who would have thought VHSs would sell these days? Who's even looking at VHSs? And then Turbo Kid, we just that movie is a little older, and we just keep
Hmm.
putting out new Blu-rays, new collectible items for that one, and I'm glad that people like our merch because we have so much fun making it.
That's really cool to hear. And obviously, please excuse the pun here, but I feel that you guys are kind of like a cult hero in that sense, right? Like, I feel that you guys, I've been waiting to put that in here as a joke for the longest time. But yeah, I just feel like you guys are like, that's like, have that really cult nature to a lot of your products, which is all under one. This one was just kind of there, but like all under one banner is really cool to see that.
Yeah, honestly, I'm surprised no one's ever made a cult following joke with us.
Really?
You're the first one, and it's dawned on me that like,
Yes.
even internally we have not made that joke, and we're pretty quick at that. Um, but yeah, I think that we know the products that we have, and we know who our audience is, and we're gonna give what our audience wants, right? A lot of the time,
Hmm.
especially like again looking at Turbo Kid, we have that film for just Canada, so there's a little more fun that we can do with it, right? We can it's just us doing what we want.
Yeah.
We think that our audience will enjoy what we enjoy. If that's a vinyl copy of one of our movie soundtracks one day, I'm sure that'll happen. You know what I mean? And it's
Vinyl for Climax
yeah,
would
that
be real cool.
I believe the US might have done that. Yeah, just because those are you have to get the rights to every single artist for that movie. But
Right. Right. So sorry, one more thing actually. Now we're just talking about like vinyl and everything. Music seems to be like a very interesting part of like the different Raven Banner like projects. When I think of like obviously Climax, when I think of Psycho Gorman,
yep.
yeah, there just seems like to be a very like musical aspect to it, like throughout too. I'm not sure if that's too much to do with you guys choosing or, but yeah, I just always like the music of it.
Certain movies, it depends. Obviously, we had no say in Climax.
Hmm.
But that is something that we're all massive music lovers, especially Andrew, huge music lover. So you kind of see that again, looking at the trail at the teaser from Blood in the Snow.
I was just gonna say.
Yeah, but music drives movies. Without music, a lot of movies would be insanely boring,
Hmm.
and they would lose a certain feel to them. And I think that I think we are very selective with at least the content we make. We're very particular about the music that's in it and how it fits within the movies. But we're always conscious of what actually works, right? We're not going to put like a climax esque soundtrack to something like The Breach, right? It just
Right.
doesn't fit. So I think it's just knowing what works for a movie and just putting that, making sure that we make that happen. Come True has an amazing soundtrack as well.
Come True is like on my list. There's so many here that I'm still on my list to watch. Come True is one that somehow snuck past me, and I'm definitely planning to watch it this weekend. To be honest,
Totally fine.
but yeah, there's like I was like going through. I was like I've seen like quite a bit of these movies, and I was going to like things I hadn't seen. But yeah, I'm really excited to see that. When is Mad Heidi out too? Well,
Oh, right,
actually,
yeah.
on that,
So the three films that we mentioned, Matt Heidi's out
right?
in on April 19th on VOD.
Okay.
But you'll be able to see it on pre-order much sooner than that. It'll also be available on Blu-ray because we know everyone wants to see the bonus features for that movie. Who wouldn't?
Mm-hmm. Right.
um, Cult Hero that we mentioned is going to drop on VOD on the 14th of March. And the big one that we're pushing right now, I don't know when this podcast is coming out, but The Fight Machine is going to be in theaters on Monday.
On Monday?
Yeah.
Well, with that, knowing that, I will try to put this podcast out before then. So
You don't have to.
um,
It'll be on
uh,
VOD. The Fight Machine will be on VOD in at the end of February.
okay, but I will try my best because,
You absolutely do.
I'm sorry.
You absolutely don't have to. I think it's playing at like 10 theaters. That's it.
I'm hoping some of these come to Victoria because I live in Victoria and like we get nothing fun over here whatsoever. That's not on you guys, but we never get anything fun here. I feel like ever.
Do you have a Landmark Cinemas?
No.
Then it's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
We never get anything fun here.
Do you have a theater in Victoria? What that sounds?
Yeah, we've got like we got Cineplex. That's hey, fair question. No, we have a Cineplex. We have like Odeon and stuff like that. So we have like the bigger theaters. We just don't get like I feel like they're really selective. Like our Vic Theater, I guess, like a smaller theater here. But
yeah, we used to put our movies out. We do consistently put our movies out in the Vic Theater. We try to champion those boutique smaller ones. Because again, we're a boutique company. Obviously, if we can get into Cineplex, we're gonna do that.
Yes.
But that doesn't always happen, as we all know. It's hard to compete with the Marvel movies. But
right.
But yeah, we've always had a good relationship with the Vic, Rio, and any of those like smaller boutique ones. They tend to keep our films for a little bit, which is kind of nice. But yeah, the Fight Machine's doing a one-night screening in Landmark's cinemas across Canada.
Okay. Yeah, we won't get it here, but I would love to help promote that because, yeah, it's especially as a follow-up from Spare Parts to that. I think it's like a really interesting follow-up because he did Spare Parts as well, right?
Yes, he did.
Making that? Yes. Okay. I was just making sure. Yeah. I think that's like his follow-up. I think that's a really interesting. I always love to see that about like there's a difference on where filmmakers can go.
He was actually working on the Fight Machine a lot longer than Spare Parts. Spare Parts was just not easier. Spare Parts was just one that was its time to make it, you know? And with the Fight Machine, you have to take so much time in figuring out who the actors are going to be, and all these pieces have to really fall into place. And I think it works that it's his third film.
Yeah. Well, definitely pass on congratulations because I think that the action of it just from the trailer, just like it looked really visceral, and I feel like that because I was going to say I have a background in boxing. That's a lie. I do not have a background in boxing. I grew up. My best friends were all like a lot of my best friends were professional fighters, and one of my friends was a professional boxer. So I've been around boxing like entirely my whole life because of that. So I thought like the action of that and the boxing of it looked really cool and really clean. So and that's hard to do from any fight movie, I feel.
Yeah, I agree. I think it does help that the Bricks both have boxing experience. So yeah, I think that they were able to bring that into their characters. They get to play a father and son duo that are into boxing, and that's their life. And that was something that they actually did as a family growing up. They father and son boxing. So that's kind of an interesting thing that they got to bring reality into the work, and I think it shows a bit there.
It looks really cool because I'll watch like this is how much I've been around it, right? I will watch like other bigger movies and I'll be like watch an actor, I'm like, oh, that's weird because that actor doesn't know how to throw a punch. This actually looked like it was really cool, and that's what's always kind of sells me too. I'm watching any movies about boxing or fighting in general because it looked really cool.
Yeah, I completely agree, and that was one of the things that they were looking for when they were casting people as well. And I should clarify, when I say the Bricks, I mean Dempsey Brick and Greg Brick, the actors who play the father and son duo in The Fight Machine. Not that their characters' names are Brick. Realize that could have been kind of confusing there. But yeah, I think that is something that shows really well, is that they actually knew what they were doing. And you can kind of see that in movies when they don't actually basketball specifically and playing soccer. You can clearly tell when the person they're filming does not actually know what they're doing. And it bothers me.
I'm thinking of that Robbie Amell football one. I think it's from the movie The Duff. I'm not sure if you've seen that. It's like a viral clip and he's trying to throw the football.
Yeah.
And it's like horrible. I mean, in defense of him, I heard that in an interview where they put the camera, he had to throw the football like that. And he's like, I'm going to look like an idiot throwing a football. But I do just think the distinction there.
Yeah.
It's just always funny to see when you can see someone like clearly doesn't know how to do that. Even smoking is actually one of those funny things where I'm like, that person doesn't smoke.
Yeah. Yeah. You can tell that they don't actually know how to hold it and stuff like that. Um,
Yeah.
you know what? Being an actor is hard, and I am not. I never want to be in front of the camera because I know how hard that is.
Yeah. Same.
Respect, respect it. But yeah, sometimes a double might be needed.
Yes, I agree. Anelle, I will thank you so much for being on the show. I will. We should like wrap up here because I know you have an incredible busy schedule. Try to get this edited to get out as soon as possible because I really want people to see Fire Machine in theaters if possible. So thank you so much for coming on the show. Where can anyone find you online? Or if I'm not sure if you just want people to follow Raven Banner or not, I should probably specify that.
Of course, follow Raven Banner, but I'm constantly posting what we're doing out there, any of the markets I'm at, which doesn't always get put out onto Raven Banner just because we're all going around. So if you're ever trying to figure out if I'm at a festival or if I'm doing any pitching sessions, if you might run into me at something like Blood in the Snow, you can follow me at on Instagram at Anelle D. Same thing with Twitter and TikTok as well. Anelle D across the board.
Okay, I'll put that in the show notes. Anelle, thank you so much. This is absolutely awesome. I'm not sure if you saw, this is kind of like a weird thing that maybe people see on Instagram now, but I'm not sure if you saw on my Instagram, I had like a dream list of like collaborations, such like that. I've wanted to make like over, and I put this list like last year. And on that list was like a collaboration with Raven Banner in any shape or way. And this was on there. And thank you so much for helping this come true because yeah, I was really excited to have you on here and talk about just Raven Banner as a whole, and I really appreciate this. So thank you
Yeah,
so much.
you're so welcome. And happy to do so and continue to keep this relationship growing.
For sure. All right. Yeah, definitely have you on some other time to talk more Raven Banner. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.